Water Committee will come to order, please. One moment while I close the door. Thank you. They recommend we leave it open, but there's so much noise on this floor, it's just not going to work. First order of business, are there any bill introductions? Had somebody stopped me in the hallway and said they had one, and they looked at me and they said, oh, wrong committee. So that ended that. I see none either here. Let me look at the participants, see if there's anybody that has a bill introduction. See none. Thank you. Today, we have a presentation and informational hearing from the Division of Emergency Management, Kansas Adjutant General's Office, and we have Angie Morgan, the Deputy Director. Angie, are you here? I don't see her on either. Angie Morgan. My assistant did not tell me, and he's sick at home. We'll stand at ease for a few minutes, see if we can make contact with Angie and see what the problem is. Victoria, are you on the line? Victoria, have you been able to get in touch with the speaker or not? She did unmute. I think Victoria, did you hear me?
Mr. Chairman, this is Zach with the Revisor's Office. Can you hear me?
I can. Go ahead.
I see Victoria is on the WebEx and she's trying to communicate with you, but we're having some tech problems.
Okay. I just wanted to know if she was able to talk to the supposed speaker for today. We see you again.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can, yes.
Thank you. Okay, Meredith is calling the Adjutant General to see, they were sent the link yesterday, so there's no reason that she shouldn't be on. So we're trying to track her down, but she confirmed that she got the link yesterday.
Okay. Well, we'll wait a few more minutes to see what the results are. Let us know when you hear.
I will, thank you. Mr. Chairman, the speaker says she's waiting for the host to admit her.
Okay, and he just left the room. Hang on just a moment.
Committee,
We can hear you, Meredith.
Chairman,
Yes? Go ahead, Meredith.
can you hear me?
Yes.
We're trying to get the presenter admitted. Is there a IT in the room?
We're looking for him. Okay, welcome. Sorry for the difficulties this morning. Angie, if you would, just jump right in and let's go for it.
Okay, do you have a copy of my presentation? Or do I need to share the screen?
You'll have to share it because, did you send it to the committee assistant?
Yes, Marty Schimmel did.
Okay, well, the problem is our assistant is ill.
How do I share the screen? Share screen. Let's see.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Okay, can you see my presentation? Can you see my presentation?
We can, please
Okay,
proceed.
good.
It looks very good.
I'm sorry. I think I'm getting old because I'm having troubles with technology, so I apologize for that. It's my understanding that you would like a brief overview of the Kansas Division of Emergency Management and focus on the areas where we deal with water. So that's how I've tailored my presentation today. I'm the Deputy Director of Emergency Management. Our mission statement there, we basically protect all Kansas. We do that by coordinating state, local, and federal resources and through the resources, expertise, and leadership that we have based on our comprehensive risk-based emergency management program. Our vision is that we build sustainable emergency management capabilities in Kansas. And these are our values. Our planning, all of our KDM employees participate in our values, mission, and goals. And not any one is more rated or more important than the others, but we believe in integrity, collaboration, advocacy, fiscal responsibility, and professionalism. Our program is nationally accredited. We sought original accreditation in 2012, and we were compliant with all 64 standards, and then we get re-accredited every 5 years. So we were successful in that in 2018. I will tell you that it's harder to receive re-accreditation than your first accreditation, because you have to show that you are in compliance with those standards every day for 5 years. And so we're very proud of our accreditation for our state. So briefly, what is emergency management? It's an organized fashion of handling the chaos. And that's basically doing analysis, planning, providing information decision makers, and then assign the available resources that you have to mitigate, prepare, respond, or recover from the effect of any hazard. And it's definitely an inclusive process. It's not a silo process. The goals of emergency management are very simple. We want to save lives, we want to protect property, and we want to lessen the impacts of whatever hazard or incident is occurring on the environment. So we're part of the Adjutant General's Department. We're very small. There's about 50 full-time employees. We're all civilians. And then the Adjutant General is also the Homeland Security Director, and he is the Director of Emergency Management. I'm his deputy, and I handle the day-to-day administrative duties. And then he's the commander over the National Guard, both Air and Army, and we have an administrative arm of the Agency for Civil Air Patrol. So primarily all of our funding is federal. They're through the Department of Homeland Security preparedness grants, and then we have one grant that's through US DOT. We also receive state general funds of around $1 million, and then we receive fees from Wolf Creek Nuclear Power Plant and Cooper, which is in the state of Nebraska, but falls within our 50-mile emergency planning zone. So these are our core functions. We are by statute the lead coordinating agency. We do disaster assessment following any event, work very close with the locals. We prepare any requests for federal assistance for the governor. We do public education and information. We are very resource management heavy due to our role with coordinating resources. We do radiological and chemical consultation. We manage the State Emergency Operations Center. We have a multidisciplined state hazard mitigation team, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about some of the flood mitigation projects that we have. We're also responsible for the Kansas Response Plan, and we promulgate planning standards and provide technical assistance for local emergency operations plans. And then lastly, we train staff and other emergency personnel and do exercises. So there's 4 phases of emergency management, and they never begin and they never end. And so we're constantly doing one phase while we're still in another, and continuous cycle of that. And all of our organ or our structure of our division is based around those 4 cycles. And all of our duties are primarily we shadow or mirror when we activate the State Emergency Operations Center. We have expertise in the matter that we're actually in the role of then in response and recovery. So mitigation basically are activities that you aim at eliminating or reducing the long-term risk of property damage and loss of hazards, loss of life from hazards. So for instance, in flooding, we would look for flood buyouts. We would look to mitigate and move utility boxes, water heater furnaces out of the lower level of a structure. We would try to look for any type of protection of a sewer or water treatment facility. And those are some of the flood or water projects. And then, of course, we're very big on safe rooms for schools. We are starting a residential safe room program right now. So those are the activities that we can't prevent the tornado from happening or the flood, but we can mitigate against any effect that it might have on our communities. We like to spend most of our day in preparedness, however, that doesn't seem to be our world lately. And so in preparedness, we're doing those activities, preparing for the next hazard or scenario that we have in our state. So that's when we're looking very closely at our plans. We're doing identifying training and conducting training and doing exercises, public awareness campaigns, and those type of things. So after every event, we do an after action review and an improvement planning workshop and assign specific parties to then prepare and correct or improve the process or whatever that might be for the next event. Of course, response, we're not really responders, but we provide a lot of resources to the response. So those are the time-sensitive actions that it takes to save lives and property. The locals are always in charge, but we support them through any capabilities that we might be able to send them, either through other counties, through mutual aid, state resources, volunteer resources, or federal resources. Then lastly, recovery, and those are all the activities that you want to restore your community back to normal. So that could be drinking water supplies, it could be building, reconnecting of utilities, and that varies on the scope and magnitude of the disaster. So I know that you didn't ask for it, but just to give you an idea of how we give state assistance to counties, it's made through the emergency manager, and that way all resource requests, whether it's a health emergency, a public drinking water supply emergency, or wildfire, has one number to call, and we know who then to vet that with and send the resource. So we ask them if they've exhausted all their resources within their community and all their mutual aid resources. We also facilitate and help them find mutual aid resources because we realize that while they're handling the emergency, they don't have time to then ask for help. So we do that. We also ask them if they've exhausted contractor support. And then lastly, a verbal or written county declaration shows us that they have done all those things. So some of the type of things that we've helped with in the past when it comes to water is public water supply assistance. We have seen this a lot, I'd say over the last 5 years, primarily in the summer, late spring, where communities have boil water advisories or warnings or do not drink water orders. And so we coordinate with both volunteer groups and private contractors to support and provide potable and non-potable water. That includes drinking water in bottles and then in tankers. We primarily do a lot of technical assistance during a water emergency. For a flood, we have partnerships with the Water Office in KU, and we have a robust GIS section that forecasts and does flood inundation mapping. We give that then to our local partners so they can look for areas where they may need to evacuate, plan evacuation routes, or other mitigation measures. We work with the Department of Agriculture on the flood management and very closely with the Department of Health and Environment since they own the Public Water Emergency Plan statute. And we can task them to provide engineering, hydrology expert and engineering to the local treatment facility. We are a member of the Governor's Drought Task Force, which the Kansas Water Office leads. And they also, the Water Office has the municipal water conservation plans. We work very closely with our National Weather Service. As you can imagine, during last year's flooding, we had we embed a National Weather Service person in our State Emergency Operations Center. But in addition to that, we have at least daily or twice daily phone calls with the river forecasting offices. And we also invite our local partners, county emergency managers and others to join that. So they're getting that information as well. And then our federal partner that we work most with on water is the Corps of Engineers. Kansas falls within 2 districts. So Kansas City has the Missouri River and pretty much the northern half. And then Tulsa, we work with the southern half. So last year when we had the flooding, we had liaisons from both of those districts in our office providing reservoir forecasting. And then that's how we get our sandbags. And they also provide a lot of engineering and hydrology assistance to our local communities. So when we have to respond to a water emergency, whether it's drinking water or a flood, which requires a lot more life safety measures, we ask for a governor's declaration of emergency. And that really gives KDEM the authority for the deployment and use of resources to either distribute the supplies, equipment, materials, facilities, manage the State Emergency Operations Center. So that is why a governor's emergency declaration is so important to us, because without it, we don't have the statutory authority to do those things during our normal daily statutory responsibilities. We have a Kansas response plan. That's really the foundation for our program, and that's how our game plan, if you will, based on policies and laws, of how we respond and recover during an emergency. And the governor's declaration triggers that Kansas response plan, the response and recovery portions of that plan. So it's a policy document that really, as I said, provides the framework and the foundation. It's very comprehensive. It's reviewed every 3 years and repromulgated. It's based on all hazards. It's based on the risk that we have in Kansas and by the community, authorities based on law, and then it assigns the responsibility. Why we plan for all hazards never made sense to me, because I spent about 18 years of my first career here in response and recovery, and I didn't like planning. In 2005, I believe it was, certain things changed in my health, and I decided that I no longer wanted to rummage through sewer backup and tornadoes. So well, actually, it was before that. It was 2001. I did go to New York City and work the World Trade Center. And while I was there, there was a commercial airline that crashed. and I had the opportunity to go out on the site and work. I was scared because a little Kansas girl had never experienced that, and I certainly wanted to represent our state well and not fail. So when I got there, the first thing I noticed was that in parts of the area, they were doing damage assessment, which is one of the first things that you do when you arrive at a tornado or flood scene. They were looking for people, which you see search and rescue normally at a tornado scene. I saw utility providers restoring electricity. I saw traffic control. I saw ambulances. I saw fire department putting out house fires. And I thought, man, why didn't I get that this is why you do all hazard risk-based planning? Because it makes sense. Your actions are pretty much the same. You have the same consequences caused by the hazard. And this is why you do things consistently and do it right. And so that really, I guess, made the light bulb for me to come on. And then planning was exciting, and I changed my career to more of a getting out of that muck and behind doing the planning, because I thought that was really exciting and make a difference. So our Kansas response plan is based on a basic plan and have 15 functional annexes. We also have incident-specific annexes. So right now we're working under the biological incident where the Department of Health and Environment has lead and makes a decision for the health. And then we are in support and find them the resources and move the logistical stuff through the resource management side of the house, which is KDM. We also have a state continuity of government annex, nuclear radiological incident, which also includes Wolf Creek and Cooper, and then a food and agriculture incident, which we also test and plan and exercise with the Department of Ag taking the lead on that. And that primarily centers around food emergencies and then foreign animal disease. And then we have some support annexes that delve a little bit deeper into things such as debris management, mass casualty, mass fatality, and then legal. And our emergency support functions, it's a functional approach which groups the capabilities of state agencies and non-governmental agencies and federal agencies into a like group based on their statutory and primary responsibilities. And so, as I mentioned, there's 15 of them, and you can see using just running through some common scenarios of hazards that we have in Kansas, why those 15 are pretty much the same every time. And we're quickly able to categorize anything into one of those events. So cyber is a big topic right now, but really what does it mean when you have a cyber hazard? So we look at the consequences of that. So is that going to disrupt security? Is it going to disrupt our water drinking plant? Is our utilities, power, lights going out? And so we can quickly deal with whatever consequence that fits into with one of these emergency support functions. So briefly, just to talk about some of the funding opportunities that we have around water. These are all federal programs through the Federal Emergency Management Agency. The Public Assistance Program requires a major presidential declaration and is authorized under the Stafford Act. It's a FEMA program, but the Kansas Division of Emergency Management administers the program. The eligible applicants are local governments, so that would include townships, school districts, cities, counties. State government is eligible, tribal government, and certain private nonprofit organizations. And FEMA determines who is eligible. So they do, most of the private nonprofits are rural electric companies. They have to provide a crucial, important, essential life safety type for their community. And then there are certain categories of work. So debris removal and emergency protection measures are emergency things that happen during a disaster. And then anything below roads down to parks is permanent work. So you'll see that there's funding opportunities for repair of water control facilities, levees, dams, flood control projects, as well as water treatment, power generation, sewage, communications. They do look at insurance, or they look at insurance that you could have purchased but didn't. And they will also do mitigation. So they're very big on any type of, say, water treatment facility that's in the floodplain that's repetitive damage. They want to mitigate that, move that, or elevate that, however they choose. So these are some of the hazard mitigation assistance funding opportunities. They are also through FEMA. And I'll talk just briefly about what triggers some of those. So the hazard mitigation grant program comes after a presidentially declared disaster. And it's kind of tied to the public assistance program in that there is a cost share, 75% federal, 25% non-federal, and the state receives 15% of the 75% obligation. So if you have a very small public assistance disaster, you don't get very many funds to do mitigation projects. The new program that just came out last year is Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities, the BRIC. It is basically a yearly grant that we apply for, and it's any hazard mitigation projects that reduce the risk. So you can see in my slide, this is a picture of a safe room out in Western Kansas, one of our past projects. And it again is a 25% non-federal share program. It replaced the pre-disaster mitigation grant. So we have several PDM grants that we're still administering over the until the life goes out of those. And this is a flood wall project at Leavenworth. So examples of past projects that we've done, we have protected and purchased private property that is repetitive, as I mentioned, repetitive damage, floodplain property, purchase and remove it. Hazard mitigation plans are required, and you'll see a slide that really speaks to the efforts that we've made in that area in the past few years. They also fund floodplain and stream restoration, riprap, flood diversion, and then lastly, safe rooms. This is a new grant that just happened about the last 3 years. Well, actually October 18th, 2018. And that is mitigation grants that come off from a wildfire. You don't have to use them back to the specifics of the wildfire or if it was a flood, but we try to mitigate the hazard that got us the declaration. So we would look at soil stabilization and flood diversion and those types of measures. The Flood Mitigation Assistance Grant is a competitive grant. We do apply for it every year, and we have been successful in getting it every time that we've applied for it. And those are in repetitive flood damages that are buildings insured by the NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program. And then FEMA selects those based on the rankings of the national competition. So where our dollars have been spent, you can kind of see they're all federal dollars. The 2007, you can see there was a huge jump there. That's because of both of the ice storms that we had in 2006. One was a $460 million ice storm. The other one was around 320 million. So as I said, you get a lot of money off of your big disasters, but very small off of your smaller disasters. And again, you can see where we've spent money for flood mitigation. Prior to 2000, anyone could get a mitigation grant if they applied, able to come up with a 25% non-federal share. In 2000, the federal government or Congress changed that, required that you had a mitigation plan, approved mitigation plan. So what we did, excuse me, was we had only about 8 jurisdictions that could get money, and they were primarily either buying out flood prone property or they were building safe rooms. And so in order to open that pool up, we thought it was best that we allowed more jurisdictions to be able to apply. However, they didn't have the means and resources to write a mitigation plan. So we did a huge campaign to get 105 county plans done. And then in 2007, we realized that that was not feasible to maintain. So we, with FEMA's approval, went to regional mitigation plans. And we have saved, we're on our second round now to save an additional $2 million for a $4 million planning project on that. And it allows our applicants then, our counties, to have more opportunity for those resources. And with that, that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Angie. This was very interesting. I do have, for the edification of the committee, would you share where your location is and how crowded you are out there?
Well, we are crowded. We are located in the State Defense Building. We have the lower level, and the building was built in 1978, I believe, just about as old as me, haha. And yes, we've really outgrown it. Technology, we can do so much more. And then with the coronavirus, with the social distancing, it's made it harder for us to do that. And so we've had some challenges, but like every good emergency manager, we're flexible, and we found a way to work around through those problems.
Now, you're located on the actual old Forbes Field complex area?
Actually, we're just about 3 miles south of the Capitol. We sit south of the Topeka Armory on Topeka Boulevard, and we're in the basement. It's a bomb shelter, so we can't really do much remodeling.
Right. And you were operational 24 hours a day during the flood emergency, is that correct?
We were. We actually had 2 events. We had the first event early in late February of last year through, I want to say, around April 1st. That was the Missouri River flooding, and that was then, that caused kind of the reservoir flooding, and we continued to have flooding. So we were 24/7 from about, I want to say, February 15th through July 17th. And with the COVID, we've been activated now. We started January 27th, but we activated our full EOC on March 12th. So we're 7 days a week, 24 hours, almost a year now.
Okay, thank you. And you do not have personnel outside of the Topeka office area. You're not in the counties anywhere.
We have 7 or
Connection was lost.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Can now.
Okay, I'm sorry. We have regional coordinators that work that live within the Homeland Security regions, and they're kind of our liaison to the counties. So, they attend a lot of meetings, exercises. They can respond to a disaster and then help them in the field. We have some restrictions on travel right now, but they are delivering some vaccines for us.
Okay, just a little housekeeping. Would you send a copy of your presentation to Victoria or Elizabeth, and I'll ask those 2 to get this copy and distribute it, along with the Kansas response plan, please?
Okay, the Kansas response plan is actually on our website, so I'll have Marty provide the link to that, because it's a pretty good document that you'll want to, read at night.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, committee, any questions? Representative Vaughn.
screen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Meredith. This presentation was really informative. I had a question. We've heard a couple of times about the uranium contamination that's happening at the border in Southwest Kansas and Colorado. And I was just wondering if you all are responding to that and what that response includes, if it's public water assistance or what that looks like. Thank you.
We have not received any requests for resources from any of the counties, but that would be primarily KDHE's role along with the EPA. So unless the community needs some support with drinking water, which we'd certainly help them with, we don't have any involvement in that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Stodge to go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a couple of quick questions. Just out of curiosity, do you guys manage the facility there at 27th and Topeka Boulevard, the old National Guard headquarters?
Yes, we're in the we're in the lower level. That's where
That's where your facility is?
Yes.
Okay. What is your connection with the National Guard again?
The Adjutant General is the Director of Emergency Management, and he's the Homeland Security Director, as well as the Adjutant General over the military. So we're the civilian arm, the Division of Emergency Management.
Okay, and just one
statutes.
Great. Just one quick follow-up on that. I noticed on the presentation it talked about protecting or purchasing public or private property that experienced or is in danger of repetitive damage. Can you guys condemn properties or anything like that, or how does that work?
No, we cannot. What happens is a local jurisdiction sends an application for funding. So let's just say Leavenworth County has done a lot of floodplain buyout, as well as Reno County over the years. And they have to submit the application, do the engineering studies. They work with the property owners. It's voluntary. And then all the programs. So we're basically just making sure that their application gets approved by FEMA and compliance and administrative, but the locals make all the decisions.
Great.
We lost your voice.
Oh, lost me? Okay.
Lost you again.
There we go.
Screen
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know, I thought it was a very interesting presentation and very informative. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Representative Carlson.
Try that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I agree. It was a very, very thorough and interesting conversation report. So down around the Tuttle Creek, Milford Lake area, the last few years has been really severe flooding. And the city park at Wakefield especially, where there's a lot of revenue incurred there by the county of Clay. And then they go back and they spend thousands and thousands of dollars to rebuild the city park, and then it floods again. So is it up to just the people, the county commissioners, to do that? To say that's that's going to be a flood zone and they need to move the city park for the county's welfare and money. And also, kind of follow up, not let me answer that one, is the gates, the dams and things that release the water at Milford. Sometimes the public doesn't understand who's deciding that. We realize it has to be taken care of by what is going to go downstream, but is there any way to understand that better so that the public isn't just wanting to know why are we continually flooding rather than letting some of that water out? Thank you.
Okay, the first question is, I'm not familiar with, out looking at the map, about Clay County, Riley County. Most of the time when they buy out flood prone property, it's in the floodplain. and they turn it to green space, which is which the city or county then puts a park in it or a ball diamond, and that is eligible. So I would assume, without checking my facts, that that's probably the case with Clay County. And they can submit projects through the public assistance program, but they can't build permanent structures on that. It can only be open green space, and most of them do parks and rec. Your second question is very complex. We learned a lot last year during the floods, primarily from the Corps of Engineers about reservoir flooding. The Corps has a master plan, and it's based on where, kind of like the gatekeeper is. So our gatekeeper, where all the water from the north comes, is in Nebraska. And then, of course, it was, and the next gatekeeper is Missouri, and then down to Mississippi. And then the same thing occurs from Milford to Tuttle to Lawrence and through the Missouri River. And then again in the Arkansas basin that's in the Tulsa district. And I think the water office, they were able to educate us in emergency management. And I would ask them for a presentation on how that all works, because it's a very complex system. And they do a lot of analysis and engineering. And they showed us with very elementary pictures where we could understand it. So I feel more comfortable if you reached out to them for that presentation.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Bishop.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, my question was answered in that last explanation, but I'll just take this opportunity to thank the presenter for a wonderful presentation and a lot of information to mull over, and we may have some questions later. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I see no more online. Anybody in the room then have any questions? I have one last question. Can a legislature ask for a visit to the site?
Oh, certainly, anytime. We're limiting visitors right now, but I will make an exception for any of you that would like to visit us.
Okay, thank you for that. And it's very informative if you would like to go visit. So
I might add that every day at 1 o'clock, we have a conference call with our local partners and do a quick overview of where we are and any concerns or hot topics. And that would be a great time for you to join, because you would hear from your county emergency managers. A lot of times local public health is on, and some of their local elected officials, but we'll accommodate your schedule anytime that you'd like to visit us.
Well, thank you for that. And I'm assuming right now you're involved quite a bit with the distribution of the COVID supplies.
Are coordinating the delivery. KDHE, of course, makes the allocation, and then we look up those routes, and then we either task another state agency or the appropriate person to deliver those then. So we're able to, once we get the routes quickly, within a 24-hour turnaround time, have those delivered to the providers.
Thank you once again. Great presentation. Sorry for the mix-up in the early on, but it turned out wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Committee, that's all we have for today, unless you have something for the good of the committee. I see nothing. We are adjourned.